Oh, Bailey wants your carrots. They know who the food man is.
When you think of zebras, you think of Africa. Now in Africa, this is what I'd be wearing because it's hot, with an open shirt, limited clothes. But I'm in Bristol, in the UK, in the middle of winter, and I'm freaking freezing. There's something you have to remember when you're working with animals in the UK, you have to work in all 4 seasons. You have to take that responsibility on and keep yourself warm. There's no staying inside keeping warm because it's cold today. We're here in Bristol to meet Terri Hill, who's breeding endangered zebras. Ladies and gentlemen, Terri Hill. Hi.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi Terri, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming to visit my lovely place with my lovely zebras.
You're most welcome. Just please tell us how you got into the zebras and how you're here.
I've joined BIAZA, which is the British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and I started to visit zoos, and then I stopped taking photographs of zebras and started taking photographs of hinges on gates and enrichment devices and housing, bedding, and then eventually built my own enclosure and have my own menagerie.
It's fantastic. Can you just tell us what species of zebra you do have?
So these are plains and subspecies of plains Grant's zebras, so the most northern of the subspecies. They're really cute and I really like them. If I go on to a really small level, to start with, when I first got involved, it was much more difficult to get involved with the breeding programs of the Grevy's and the Hartman zebras, although I have been involved in that since in different ways. So plain zebras were, I wouldn't say easier to obtain, because I jumped through a lot of hoops on fire to make sure I was doing everything correctly to get a zebra, because you'll be surprised at the amount of people that want a zebra and think that they're going to be some kind of pet animal, and they're not. You may have got some stuff on video of them not being very nice to one another, let alone to humans as well, and there are a few good stories where they've not been nice to humans. My zebras are quite well trained, although when I hear something happening, I'm always looking to make sure I know that where we are is in the safest space in relation to them. So I chose plain zebras because they were going to be my easiest starting point. And I also was really fortunate to have been taught a lot about zebras at Longleat by Keith and Andy at Longleat at the time, and they had plain zebras and they have Grant zebras there. So I learnt a lot in my initial education of these with these animals.
And most people probably do think they are very numerous because we see them a lot on wildlife documentaries and zoos.
Yep.
And if you do visit the national parks, which they are everywhere.
Yep.
How drastic are their numbers coming down?
So since I've been doing, these have been at home here nearly 13 years now, and since I've been doing that, they started off as least concern. Now they're near threatened, so they're in decline all the time, as is all the wildlife all around the world, which is really sad. So keeping this population is really important, because as the other types of zebras that are slightly lesser in numbers than these, at one point in their life they will have had good numbers like these do. So they are in decline, and it is really important that we keep beautiful animals like lovely Bailey not only in the wild to help with the ecosystem in the wild, which is they're so important with, to also to educate the younger generation that are coming along, and to make them appreciate them and give them the opportunities to respect and understand and meet these animals. Anything that happens in a breeding program is always coordinated by a stud bookkeeper, and that stud bookkeeper will try to keep those genetics as pure as they possibly can for 100 years. So every year you'll go down to 99 and you'll go back up to 100 again. And there are obviously computer programs that help you maintain that and manage that. Then you choose the most important mares that need to be bred from, and the stallions, so that keep the genetics as far apart as you possibly can to stop bottlenecking and situations that go wrong with genetics. The two furthest away have been moved to me because one is a male, one is a female. The female was getting to breeding age and they didn't want to move her father, so she had to come out of the group. And the male was about to start sparring with his dad to try and take on dominance. And obviously he didn't need to be covering his mum and his sisters in the group as well. So he was just moved out. They're here with me. Bailey and her brother were moved to me because they were being naughty and they were upsetting the dynamics of the group in their zoo. So they came to me nearly 13 years ago. They were my initial ones.
One of the amazing things about zebras, their stripes, they can act like a camouflage when they're in the forest. They're really hard to spot, especially when the sunlight is beaming down through that forest. Plain zebra live in a harem system, so a group of females, an alpha female as well, led by one stallion. Males will usually challenge each other for the right to mate within that harem. Other animals on the African savanna will often rely on zebras. Zebras will look out for predators first to spot them, and they'll make alarm calls alerting all the other species there's a predator around. This needs to be done every day of the year, 365 days a year. Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Valentine's, birthdays, winter, summer, spring, autumn. Every day, if you're looking after animals, every day they need looking after. That's including zebras and every animal outside. And today it's freaking freezing. Do you think zebras get enough publicity compared to elephants and rhinos, you know, the big five?
Yeah, I think they get lots of publicity because everybody loves a stripe. People think, and I've heard so many times people say they're like stripy ponies, and they're not like stripy ponies at all. They're so different in the fact that Bailey is incredibly unusual. She chose to be like this with us. We didn't train her to be like that. She wanted to interact with us right from when we first got her, so that's her choice to want to do that. They are nasty, they do bite, they do kick, they are very dominant over their food, and you will see that Vera is much older than these two guys, 2 years older, but more dominant. She's stronger, she's bigger, so she's telling them, go out of the way. And although ponies do this in the wild, you know, wild horses do the same, they haven't been bred for niceness. So we didn't choose the nicest zebra with the nicest zebra, we chose the best genetics with the best genetics. It doesn't really matter whether they bite, they kick, or they're nice. It matters that we keep their genetics for as long as we possibly can and as pure as we possibly can.
Will these ever be released into the wild? I know in the wild they move populations from one national park to another.
Yeah.
But would you love to see like their offspring?
Gosh, releasing these guys into the wild wouldn't even be on anyone's agenda at the moment because their numbers are still good enough.
Yeah.
The Somali wild ass, which I've also got, definitely they'd love to see that as a reintroduction program at some point, but until the area of which they can reintroduce them is safe enough to do so, it's kind of pointless really, because all you're doing is releasing sitting targets. But the Przewalski wild horse is an amazing story about how zoos and reintroductions can actually work. They were extinct in the wild. They were bred in zoos specifically to go back out. There was a huge effort made. There was a re-release situation done, and now they are doing so well in the wild. That and Scimitar Horned Oryx, they're the two sort of big mammal success stories that really spring to the front of my mind.
Most people generally think of Africa as extremely hot. Today,
yes, today it's not hot.
It's not hot. How, just for the people to understand, Are zebras adapted for this?
They cope really well. It's not always hot in Africa. It dips down to 1 to -1 degrees at night, and they deal with it. As long as they have got a decent covering on them, when I say covering, I mean of fat, then they'll cope in it absolutely fine. They'll eat about 17 hours a day. They are hindgut fermenters, so they constantly have to have a small amount of forage going through their gut to make it work. They just eat, they'll graze, they'll rest when they think they want to rest. But they're quite, I mean, they've had hay this morning, they've got hay now, they munch on it. You'll notice the feeder behind has got holes in it to make it slightly more difficult to eat. So they actually have to work for their food like they would have to go and find it in Africa. They would have to source it. They've got free range of a 2-acre paddock as well. But you can see they're princesses. They don't want to go and get their feet muddy. They have complete selection, so they have freedom of choice.